Hi, welcome to another episode of Straight Lions Talk. Today we're going to be talking about the dismal performance the Detroit Lions had in Week 2 against the Minnesota Vikings. And we're also going to be talking about the Week 3 matchup on Sunday night against the Denver Broncos. If you guys want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at Straight Lions Talk. It's STR Lions Talk. You can also follow us on YouTube channel, Straight Lions Talk, spelled the same way, STR Lions Talk. We're going to start with the Minnesota Vikings. What a dismal performance from the Vikings or by the Lions. They were dominated. They were out coached. They were out physical. They were out play called. They were out anything you can think of. That's what they were. Their defense was terrible. The coaching was terrible. They were not. They did not match up well against the Vikings, which is something this show thought they would do. But overall, the Minnesota Vikings kicked our butt up and down the field every which way you can think of. There was no good notes in this game except for the fact that Matthew Stafford played a very good game. I know he's someone you're going to look at that said maybe think that he did not play a good game, but he did play a good game. He played an exceptional game. If you don't like the way Matthew Stafford played, and if you think Matthew Stafford was the cause of that loss last week against the Vikings, then you have a personal vendetta against Matthew Stafford. And I know we talk him up here, and I'll be the first one to bash him or to criticize him if he was the problem last week, and he was not the problem last week. Matthew Stafford was not the problem for the Detroit Lions. The problem for the Detroit Lions is the defense. The defense is absolutely 100% terrible. And that is a huge problem, and it's something that I cannot believe is an issue for this team the way they played last year. But this year's defense looks totally different than last year's defense. I don't understand it. I understand we lost Sue. I understand we lost Fairley. Let's look at those two players for just a second. Let's look at Nick Fairley first. Nick Fairley was only played a minimal amount of games last year. What, 4 or 5? He was not a factor in the success of the Detroit Lions on a consistent basis last year. So losing him was a non-factor. But Ndamukong Suh, of course he's a factor to lose. He's a presence in the middle. He's probably the best defensive tackle in the league. But let's all get something straight. There's only one Ndamukong Suh, and 31 other teams don't have Ndamukong Suh on their team. The Seattle Seahawks don't have Ndamukong Suh on their team. They were in the Super Bowl last year. The New England Patriots don't have Ndamukong Suh on their team, and they won the Super Bowl. So what are we doing here? I understand the loss of Sue is critical to what our defense did last year, but the fact of the matter is those first 2 games would not have mattered if Ndamukong Suh was there. There's deeper issues here with this team on the defensive side of the ball than Ndamukong Suh not being on the team. I understand we lost C.J. Mosley, but for the most part, that whole unit is back together. I thought they'd be a more cohesive unit by this point, and maybe not as dominant, maybe in portions of the run game and things like that, but I didn't think we would be getting scorched over the middle the way we are by the offense. Teddy Bridgewater, who we called him check down Teddy last week, and we predicted the Lions would win 27-10. Teddy Bridgewater didn't play a great game. He played an efficient game, but Teddy Bridgewater checked every ball down right over the middle, either to Mike Wallace or to his tight end, Kyle Rudolph, and to Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson had a phenomenal game. I'm not saying Adrian Peterson's terrible, but I'm just saying Adrian Peterson should not have had the game he had against the Lions last week, or near the success in the passing game he had. There's a problem with this defense. It looks to me like we're playing a Tampa 2 style defense. I don't understand what is going on with the defense. I can't figure it out. Last year, our corners played man press coverage up. We played back again. This is reminiscent of the days of Gunther Cunningham being there when Jim Schwartz was there. We played a bend but don't break, some kind of Tampa 2 style. We don't get pressure on the quarterback. We don't try to get pressure on the quarterback. And something we did great last year was getting pressure up the middle, and I understand that came with Sue. But the fact of the matter is other teams can generate that pressure up the middle. Why can't we? The San Francisco 49ers gave the Lions the blueprint for success against the Vikings on defense. All we had to do was go jumbo package. That's the whole reason I thought we brought in Amir Abdullah, Mike Burton, Manny Ramirez, Laken Tomlinson, so we could be a more identifiable force against the defense and dominate on the run. And we didn't do that. The 49ers ran 3 tight ends the week before, dominated the Vikings. But the start of the game, we didn't go 3 tight ends, and the excuse for that was we don't have the personnel that the 49ers do. Okay, well, let's address that for a second. Why don't we have the personnel? Like I just said a minute ago, I thought we addressed that in the draft and through free agency. We were going to be a dominant force. We're going to try to run the football in situations that cause us, excuse me, I'm getting all flustered here. We were going to try to run the football in situations that called for us to run the football, and we didn't do that. This was the perfect opportunity to enforce our will on the Vikings. They were a beat-up team. Like I said a minute ago, the 49ers went 3 tight ends. They had 3 bigs. They were a big package dominated the line of scrimmage against the run. The Vikings had no answers for it at all. So what did we do? Oh, we can't. We don't have that personnel, Joe Lombardi said. Well, whose fault is that? Why do you go after Tim Wright? Why do you sign a 220-pound tight end that can't block to get rid of Joseph Fourier? What, to make a point? Come on. Joseph Fourier wasn't the problem with the blocking tight ends. I understand Brandon Pettigrew was out, and that would have helped a lot to have him in on the blocking side of the ball. But the fact of the matter is with that, why couldn't we have brought in Laken Tomlinson or Manny Ramirez and an extra offensive lineman in to go big? We drafted Michael Burton. Joyce Bell's supposedly healthy. That's exactly what we needed, to pound, to control the clock, to control the pace of the game on offense. But the fact of the matter is the Lions don't do those things. I don't understand what the problem is. Is this coaching staff so arrogant and think they're so smart and they think their scheme is so unique and so perfect that if you play within the scheme, success will be had? Right now, that's not happening. Teams are out coaching us. We were out coached in the second half, dominated in the second half by San Diego, and we were out coached and out physicaled during the whole game against Minnesota. So what is going on in Detroit? This doesn't make any sense. This is not the way any of us saw this going. If we went 1-1, I wouldn't have been upset because it was a tough game against San Diego, but we had no reason to lose against an overrated Minnesota Vikings team. That team, we were better than that team all over the place on paper. We were better at the quarterback position, we're better at the receiver position, we're better at the running back position as a group. Not saying that our group is better than Adrian Peterson, but as a group we should have been better. But defensively we match up better against their offensive players. We bottled up Teddy Bridgewater a 3 times, but he was able to escape. That scares me to death against Seattle, that he had the success running the football from the quarterback position, because Russell Wilson will chew the Lions alive if that happens. He'll have 150 yards rushing. I mean, it'll be ridiculous because he actually can run the football, where Teddy Bridgewater's forte is actually throwing the football. It's not really as a runner, but we made him look like he was the second best running back on the field for the whole game. And, congratulations Teddy Bridgewater, congratulations to the Vikings. They were the better team. It was nothing about Matthew Stafford. It was nothing about anything other than the offensive line is playing absolutely terrible, and the defense as a whole is playing absolutely terrible. We've talked on the show that we thought the defense would be a work in progress, and maybe by week 8 we kind of see some traction about where they were and how they would be playing as a unit, and maybe get an idea and an identity of how this defense would be for the Lions this season. But right now, I don't know where that defense is going. I don't know where the identity of the team's going, and I don't know what Terrell Austin can do to fix it, because he doesn't seem to have any answers. And Terrell Austin, I'm sure you're not going to watch this video, but if anyone sends it to you, you need to fix this defense now. There has to be solutions. I thought for sure Stephen Tulloch would be cut last week because he is absolutely terrible. He's playing terrible. He's old. He's not fast anymore. He's not quick. He doesn't fit whatever we're trying to do on this defensive scheme, which looks to me like instead of having Stephen Tulloch blitz up the middle like he did last year, we're having him play back in pass coverage all the time. And he's getting chewed alive. If anyone has noticed, the Jacksonville game during the preseason, that was a warning. And teams have copied that, and we cannot fix it. It reminds me of when Jim Harbaugh was running that trap play with the 49ers against us when we were at San Francisco, and we couldn't come up with a solution during the game to fix it. So what did teams do in the previous week? Because it's a copycat league, teams were running the trap against us. So what happened in the San Diego game, the first half? They weren't running those over-the-middle plays. They were trying to run play action. They were trying to get the ball deep on deep slant routes. Nope. So what San Diego do in the second half? They came out, ran short slant patterns against who? Rasheed Mathis, against Stephen Tulloch. They target those two players on defense, and they're just getting killed. Mathis is absolutely too old to be playing cornerback in the NFL. He should maybe, and especially the second, the outside cornerback, he maybe could play the slot guy and maybe have some success. But the fact of the matter is, Mathis and Tulloch are two big problems, and the teams are picking on him. And the thing they're doing against us is they're taking their best player and having him run over the middle. And the thing is, he's not even covered. He's wide open, and there's no one there in the middle to stop him. They benched Teeter Whitehead last week, but they don't bench Tulloch. They don't bench Mathis. They don't bench Cornelius Lucas, who was absolutely garbage on the offensive line. But the defense as a whole, has to come up with a solution. We're going to see what Terrell Austin's made of. Hey, Terrell, if you want a head coaching job, you better fix this defense. If you think you're going to be a candidate next year, you have another thing coming if this defense is going in the direction it's going right now. You better come up with solutions. You better come up with solutions fast. You were an attack-style defensive coordinator last year that wreaked havoc all over the defense, all over the offensive opponents. But now you're laying back, letting things happen instead of making things happen as you did a year ago. That needs to be fixed. That is the primary problem with this team right now, is the defense. The second issue with this team is that offensive line. An offensive line that played so well during the preseason, played in just phenomenal football the first half against San Diego. We looked like the best team in the NFL that first half. What happened? Teams made adjustments. Teams started blitzing other guys on the outside, especially on the right side, on Cornelius Lucas's side. Last week, Cornelius Lucas against the Vikings was absolutely garbage. He was just trash. I don't understand how he kept playing in that game. There had to be any option was better than Cornelius Lucas at that point. Anyone. You could have put Laken Tomlinson out to the right side, and I think he would have done a better job in protecting Stafford. That's where all the heat came from against Stafford, was on that right side. It is ridiculous. We don't leave people in to chip. The offensive line looks like one play is called. Their offensive line looks like it's running another play. I don't know what control Stafford has over those situations, or if it's Travis Swanson making the call and he's getting it all wrong. Whatever it is, they need to simplify that blocking scheme, and Joe Lombardi and the offensive line coach need to sit down and figure out how to simplify this and get back to the basics of just blocking the guy in front of you. All these stunts and having the tight end on the left side come all the way over to the right side to block the defensive end coming unblocked, and the 5 wide receiver sets that never work is just terrible. And dang it all to heck, this offense is loaded, and we don't throw deep to Calvin Johnson. All we do is throw crossing patterns all over the field. Stafford has no time to let any plays develop again. We didn't try to run the ball. Matthew Stafford was your leading rusher last week, for goodness sake. And we didn't even commit to the run, and we abandoned it for whatever reason, thinking we had some sort of success in the offensive scheme. I just don't understand how this Lions team is playing as poorly as they are. Jim Caldwell, I had my reservations about you as a coach. We've mentioned it on this show. I've given you props for bringing professionalism to the team and a sense of stability to the team. And that's something you have done, and I'll give you credit for that. But all these super intelligent players you've drafted and all this other stuff, and we've talked about that character wins in the fourth quarter. And with character comes a lot of intelligence, and a lot of intelligence in the fourth quarter helps because players know where to go in those situations and know their job. But right now, they're being out everything down the field. Jim Caldwell looks lost, like he doesn't know how to fix it. And it scares me because he did this in Indianapolis. He started running that stupid Tampa 2, and that's exactly what it looks like we're running to me. It doesn't look like we're attacking. We blitz only on certain situations. We came after Teddy Bridgewater 6 times. He completed 5 passes. Are you freaking kidding me, Teddy Bridgewater? We have no answers for anything. In an article, Terrell Davis said that we're not setting the edge. Okay, what are you doing to fix it? Didn't have any solution to fix it. As for the offense, Joe Lombardi, we need to play, but we need to make better play calls. Well, no kidding. So what are you going to do? What's the solution? Hey, this show has an idea. How about we go no huddle? The last 2 touchdowns we've scored have been no huddle touchdowns. So I don't get it. The last two touchdowns, we scored from this halftime, the second half of the San Diego game have been all no huddle touchdowns. That's where Stafford excels. Put it into the offense. Let's go quick. Let's change something up. Let's do something. We're just wasting this away. If you don't think it's a problem or an issue, well, we're going to find out Sunday night. I understand Peyton Manning's been struggling, but if you don't think Peyton Manning's sitting here drooling at the opportunity to throw over the middle to Demaryius Thomas, to Emmanuel Sanders, to whoever else he wants to throw to, C.J. Anderson, he could just snap off this week. He's been absolutely garbage this whole season. Terrible fantasy player. He was drafted really high in fantasy. He's been just a terrible disappointment overall for the Broncos. But the way our run defense has been going, I don't see the Lions having optimum success against them. But we'll get back into that in just a second. But for the most part, let's get back. I'm pretty pumped up today. For the most part, let's get back to the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings dominated us, and we were given the blueprint on how to beat them, but they were also given the blueprint on how to beat us, and they had success doing exactly what San Diego did to us. Short crossing patterns over the middle to wide open receivers. And then when we happened to cover that, the tight end's wide open. And where did we used to see that? When we ran the Tampa 2. That's why I think we're still running a stupid Tampa 2, which is something we didn't do last year. We were kind of a hybrid 3-4, even though Austin said we weren't. It still looked like a hybrid 3-4 to me. I know we played 4 defensive linemen, but a lot of times guys stood up. Guys were moving around all the time, walking around. Now the linebackers stand right in their position. They don't move. They just stand there. There's nothing going on, nothing happening. James ahead of him playing terrible football. He's not a factor, but we're not utilizing him in the positions he can be successful. James ahead of him plays better as an active player. The defense in general played last year better when they were reacting and being aggressive, not trying to picture what could happen and playing this areas of zone. And I understand at times you're going to have to play zone, but the fact of the matter is this better be fixed. The offensive line needs to be fixed. Calvin Johnson needs to play better. And he had 10 catches last week. That's great. But there was a stat where Calvin Johnson had all these catches before. When he gets double-digit catches, I think the Lions were 1 in 10. So obviously he's more effective if he can get deep. But we can't get deep because Stafford doesn't have time to throw the dang football. We don't have any sense of a running game, so teams were just teeing off. Stafford took a beating last week, just an absolute beating at the hands of the Minnesota Vikings. And this week against the Broncos, we're playing a better defense. So if you don't think this could repeat itself against Wade Phillips, who is an attack-style defensive coordinator, finds a weakness, just keeps picking at it. So Le'Veon Waddle, if he is going to play, which I hope he does, needs to step up. He needs to be a factor and be a force on that right side. If now isn't the time, now's never going to be the time to be what we thought he would be when he came out. Well, actually, when he signed with the Lions and he was such a surprise, and after the season was over, we all had such high expectations for him. He was injured last year, started off this season injured, had an injury problem coming off the field in practice this week. So I guess we'll see what happens. As Lion fans, you better hope he plays. And Matthew Stafford, you better hope he plays too. And Brandon Pettigrew's out already, which I was hoping he'd be in, but they're going to have to keep a tight end in the block. Eric Ebron's going to have to do something. He's going to have to stay in and help chip and block. I think they need to dummy down the offense. I think they need to dummy down the defense and just start playing some basic football and let the talent on the field be the success for the Lions. Let them make plays. Let them do what they do best. We're not attacking. We're not attacking on the offensive side of the football. We're not attacking on the defensive side of the football. We're complacent, which is something I didn't think we'd see given the people Jim Caldwell brought in. Austin came from a attack-style defense. Lombardi came from a attack-style offense in New Orleans. So where's this team going? The way the record looks, guys, I'm not very optimistic. Every prediction this show has made has not come true so far. Matthew Stafford played really well last week. He had a 60% completion percentage. But the fact of the matter is, this team is not a good football team. And I'm tired of saying that, and I'm not going to say the same old Lions because we're not doing that on this show. But with the way their schedule sets up, they play Denver this week, Sunday night. which could be just in butt beating up and down the field. Then they go to Seattle and Arizona comes in to Detroit, which Arizona right now looks like the best football team in the NFL. It doesn't look good. I mean, this could be one of those 30 for 30s later if they end up going 3-2 and put a winning streak together after this. I don't like their chances against Denver. And I hope this prediction has been wrong, like the San Diego prediction in the second half, because the first half our prediction was right and everything was coming true as we predicted during the offseason and up to the regular season. But after that, everything, they didn't even look like a team. You knew they weren't going to win that game from the first quarter on. You could just see it against Minnesota. Minnesota was the better team, the better coach team, the better prepared team, the better team all around. But this week against Denver, I understand Peyton Manning struggling in this new offense, but the fact of the matter is the second half of last week's game, Peyton Manning started jumping back into the shotgun and quit taking snaps under center, and things changed. Peyton Manning became a little bit of the old Peyton Manning. Doesn't have the arm strength he used to have. You can tell there's something not right with Peyton Manning. But the only thing we could do is we need to create pressure. I understand Peyton Manning's going to relish at the thought of us blitzing him, but we need to come up with ways to maybe somewhat confuse Peyton Manning, or at least make him think a little bit harder than he would. And I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. I see Emmanuel Sanders having a phenomenal game against us, especially if he's on Rasheed Mathis. He will scorch us up and down the field, left and right. Owen Daniels could have a huge game. C.J. Anderson could have a huge game. Ronnie Hillman, a multi-purpose back, catches the ball well in the backfield. He's probably the best running back they have right now in that new system, the one-cut system by Kubiak. So I don't see optimum success for the Lions. I think this is going to be an embarrassing loss for the Lions on Sunday night. I could see it being 34-7. I could see it being 34-14. I could see it being in the 40s. I don't see the Lions having success. This is the best defense they're going to play so far this season. And the way our offensive line is blocking, unless some magical things have taken place this week in preparation and some things have changed and some people have been moved around for all intent and purposes, Mathis should have lost his job. Stephen Tulloch should have lost his job. And other people should have been brought in. Give Nevin Lawson a chance. Put Tier Whitehead back in the middle. He seemed to relish in that role in the middle last year a little bit. Maybe didn't play it as effective as Tulloch did early in the season. But the fact of the matter is, after that knee injury, Tulloch is not the same player. He's a year older. He's a year slower. And with that knee injury, it might have made him 2 years slower. So everything I've read this week and everything I've seen does not justify success for the Lions to me. Adrian Waddle coming back, how injured was he Thursday when he was limped off the field? Was it reoccurring? Is he going to be able to play? Are we going to have to rely on Cornelius Lucas against Shane Ray, Vaughn Miller, or Demarius or Ware? So what are we doing here? So much promise for this season. The deepest Lions team I've ever seen. And the optimum success of this team was, man, I just thought we would be right there competing with the Packers till the end. And I could honestly see us going 0-5 to start this season. And then all the talk's going to be Jim Harbaugh, next coach of the Lions. Let's hire Harbaugh. We've all saw what Michigan's done. They've improved every week, gotten better and better and better and better. And we have not. So I don't like our chances against Denver at all. Plain and simple, I think they're going to scorch us. I think they're going to embarrass us. And I think we're going to be a same old Lions team next week. And I mean, what I mean by that is people are going to be saying it's the same old Lions. Let's talk the draft. Well, I don't want to get into draft coverage week 7 because we're out of it. And I don't want to get into draft talk week 5 because we're out of it. And I never thought for a chance we'd have a chance. My favorite player coming in, I think we said at the end of our draft show, was Jalen Ramsey. I'd loved for him to be a Detroit Lion. I never thought we'd have a chance to get him, but right now, that's looking pretty true. So I don't know if Joe Lombardi needs to go up to the box to start calling the offense. Caldwell needs to make some subtle changes like that to see if that helps. Maybe him being on the field is not the best place for him. Maybe he still see it better from up in the box. I personally don't like our offensive coordinator or a offensive coordinator calling the game from the field. There's very few of those guys in the league that have the capabilities of doing that have a feel for the game. On offense, it seems like the Lions are also jumbled up, and I think I think the Broncos are going to jam us up. That's what they do. They have good cornerbacks. They have good safeties. They have good linebackers. And that defense that Wade Phillips has, he doesn't give you time to throw the football. Wade Phillips is a terrible head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator, and he has been a good defensive coordinator for a number of years. And that's what tricks people. He's such a good defensive coordinator like Don Capers. But then he has such success as a defensive coordinator, and then someone tries to make him a head coach, and it just doesn't work out. The two doesn't correlate. So I just don't understand how this offense has no flow to it. There's no spacing. Spacing will give the defense more flow if they can get space on the field, but it seems like everything's jumbled up, and you got to give teams credit. They figured out how to jumble this up. But if you take a look at the Saints, they're jumbled up too. Drew Brees hasn't been as good. Over the last 50 games, here's a stat for you. Over Drew Brees' last 50 games, he's 25-25 with 50 interceptions. Now, in that same time, he's thrown 110 touchdowns, which is a pretty good ratio. But the fact of the matter is some of the worst football he's played over his career. He's getting sacked a ton, just a ton. He's getting the same pressure Stafford is. So my thought is, has the league figured out this offense that was so revolutionary when Sean Payton came in with the Cowboys, and then he took it to New Orleans and took it up a notch with Drew Brees having a better quarterback than what Tony Romo was when he was younger, and the capability of doing a few more things. With this high-potent, high-octane offense that Sean Payton had, have teams figured out the blocking schemes? Because the blocking's pretty complicated on this. We got a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving guards, and so do the Saints, and the Saints have struggled. I mean, do you have to have such a premier offensive line that this blocking scheme doesn't work unless you have X, Y, and Z blockers? I think our offensive line has talent and capabilities to be a good offensive line, but the fact of the matter is you have a young Laken Tomlinson who everyone liked early on, but he's being worked over by these veteran players in this scheme. It's just too fast for him right now, and he'll probably settle down midway through the year, but the fact of the matter is this offensive line is not good. And like I said before, it seems like if we call a run play, they're blocking for a pass. If we call a pass play, they're blocking for a run. I don't get it. It's terrible coaching. It's something we said that we thought was a strength of the Lions, is that their coaching had gotten better, and the players had been developing better through the Caldwell system so far. You saw improvement all last year with some players that had so much potential, and then last year seemed they settled down. There's more of a sense of professionalism. They knew the direction they were going. Some of the games weren't being played from the coaching staff like it was in years past. It was a breath of fresh air. But I don't know where this goes, guys. I don't like the outcome of the Bronco game. I just don't understand how the Lions could be so bad at this point. I don't understand how a team with this many weapons on offense and on defense, for that matter, can't play football the way the Patriots play it, in the sense, I understand we don't have Tom Brady, I understand we don't have Bill Belichick, but the fact of the matter is the Patriots play situational football. They play football against their opponent. Whatever their weakness is, that's what the Patriots try to attack. They change their game plan, they change their defense, they change their offensive schemes, their sets on both defense and offense every week to adjust to whatever the weakness is they can exploit against a team. They did it in the Super Bowl. They do it throughout the regular season all the time. This week, watch the Patriots. They'll probably run the football 200,000 times, and then when the Jaguars figure out what they're doing, they're going to throw short to Julian Edelman for 800,000 yards. The fact of the matter is Caldwell needs to figure something out, and he needs to figure it out fast. The next three opponents are tough. It's the meat of our schedule, and it really doesn't get any easier after that, because we still play Green Bay twice. We have to go to Chicago, which Chicago's not very good this year, but neither are we. We're playing terrible football. And I rank us right up there with Chicago right now. We're playing absolutely terrible overall as a team. Nothing's clicking. There's not one bright spot you can really say, hey, we're playing great, but this guy's really playing well. No, they're all playing terrible. The whole team is playing terrible. Now, the optimistic side of me wants the Lions to go 3-0 in the next 3 games. I want them to beat Denver, that's 2-0. I want them to beat an 0-2 Seattle Seahawks team with the same record as the Lions in Seattle. I want them to go and beat, probably coming in, maybe an undefeated Cardinals team, and maybe put their foot in their butt and dominate them. I'd love that. That'd be so phenomenal. I thought week 1 was a wake-up call for the Lions, but if week 2 is not a wake-up call, I don't know what is, because if they go 0-3, the chances of them making the playoffs are slim and none. And I understand Seattle's 0-2, and the Colts are 0-2, and all these other teams that are supposed to be so good or haven't had a win yet. But the fact of the matter is, the Detroit Lions are 0-2 with Denver, at Seattle, and Arizona coming in. 3 very, very tough opponents. They're going to face 2 of the best defenses. 3 of the best defenses right in a row in the NFL in 3 weeks in a row. And they're going to face high-powered offenses. Not that Seattle's is, but they're sneaky in the fact that they are good against the run. Marshawn Lynch is dinged up. The fact of the matter is, Teddy Bridgewater ran all over us. So is Russell Wilson going to run all over us and Marshawn Lynch? Who knows? Is Jimmy Graham finally going to break out of whatever slump he's in with Seattle and was in last year against us? It's looking that way. So I don't see us winning any of those games. And I'm not trying to be a pessimistic person. I'm just looking at the fact of the matter, the Lions played absolutely terrible. And I hope by me saying that is some kind of reverse karma, and the Lions do win all 3 of those games. And you guys can all say, see, it's not that big a deal, blah, 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 whatever. I would love it. I would love for every one of you who watch this to rub this in my face and say, you're wrong, all your predictions have been wrong. That's great. But the realistic side of me and watching the teams that have lost those games, now Denver's won some of those games they probably shouldn't have won. They haven't won them in a very fancy fashion, but the fact of the matter is they won those games. Now, I wouldn't care if the Lions won those last 2 games by kicking in field goals in the last second, and we were 2-0 going into this stretch. And then if we lost those 3, we'd still be 2-3. That gives us a chance. But the fact of the matter is, I don't like our chances. I don't like our chances against Denver. I don't like our chances at Seattle. We don't play well out in the West Coast at all. And that's the furthest west we're going to get. And then between that, after we get done with Arizona, we got to fly all the way to England and play a stinking game over there. More travel. And guys, I don't like the way the season's going, and I don't like the way the next 3 games look at all. I could see us talking some draft by week 5, and I'll tell you what, this show is so much harder to do when they're losing than when they're winning and things are upbeat. It's very hard to get into it. It's very hard to find a subject matter to talk about without being, oh, the same old Lions, let's fire this guy, let's fire that guy, let's do this. I mean, okay, we fired Joe Lombardi. Well, guess who's going to take over the play calling responsibility? Jim Caldwell. And what did Jim Caldwell do with Baltimore his first year? They went to the Super Bowl, and the offense flourished under Jim Harbaugh. It was like someone took the reins off Joe Flacco. They played great. The running game was there. Everything was there. The next year, they were one of the worst offenses in the league. And in my opinion, when we hired Jim Caldwell, I didn't like it for the fact of the matter is there was rumors the Ravens were going to get rid of him anyway because the offense was so inept. And we're having those same problems now. And is it Caldwell? Is it Lombardi? I don't know. Does Lombardi have a great offensive scheme devised every week, and then Caldwell picks it apart and says, no, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We want to do this. We're going to try to control this. We're going to try to play good defense and keep it close. I don't know what's going on in the meetings. I would love to know. But the fact of the matter is the Lions are 0-2 for a team that we all thought had a chance to compete for the NFC North and be in contention come playoff time to make a push and make a run at the Packers, at Seattle, at some of those teams to maybe make a push to get to an NFC Championship game, get a home victory, have back-to-back winning 10-win seasons. All those things are still there, but these next 3 weeks are going to tell the whole story for the rest of the season. If they happen to win all 3, boy, the whole Lions nation will be flying high, including yours truly. Boy, I'll tell you what, if they come out and dominate the Broncos, and this was some big wake-up call, getting their butts kicked, and they have a football life thing about the Lions, about this 0-2 team that didn't look like there's any promise, and how someone sat down and screamed at them. I don't see it. Levy's not going to be back. We have no leadership on the defense. There's not an identifiable leader on that team. Matt Stafford's not a big-time leader, so either he's going to develop into being a yelling and screaming leader like Brady, or someone on that defense is going to have to step up and do it. I don't think it's going to be Ezekiel Ansah. I don't see Jason Jones doing that. I mean, Levy's probably the leader, but he's on the bench, and he might not even play against Seattle. We don't know. It could be Arizona by the time he starts playing. So I guess we'll see how it turns out. This show and myself do not like our chances tomorrow night against the Broncos. I think they're going to get run. I think they're going to get run hard. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes. And I hope to God that's not the case. So I would love to see the Lions dominate them. And I hope my prediction's wrong that the Lions are going to lose to the Broncos in maybe humiliating fashion Sunday night. I honestly hope that is the case. I hope that they don't just lay a big egg. I hope they come out 6 guns a-blazing, take their shots down the field, come out with their pistols, 6 shots in each one. Let's take 6 shots downfield, because what the heck do we have to lose? Probably nothing. And I don't want to talk draft, like I said, but I don't like our chances. I see the Broncos winning somewhere between 35 to 40 to 7 to 14 points for the Lions. I don't see us being a whole lot better. My only hope and goal is that Matt Stafford is not the leading rusher this week as he was against Minnesota. So with that thought, tune in next week. We'll talk about however this Broncos game comes out, and we'll talk about them going to Seattle. So hopefully if we can get the win Sunday night, which this show is not optimistic that's going to happen, maybe there'll be some cause to think, hey, Seattle, they didn't win. They're 0-3. We're 1-2. Can we get some momentum going? And maybe this is the start. Maybe it was a wake-up call 2 weeks ago. Let's only hope that is the case and that success can start this week for the Detroit Lions. Okay, I'll talk to you next week.